It is Tuesday, July 28th, 2026, and this is The High Road, Logistics and Leadership. I'm Buck Reynolds, and I've got more road dust in my lungs than a shop vac.
This is Dan Miller.
I'm Jules Sterling.
And I'm Elena Rossi. We have a great show for you today.
Well, here's the deal. Yesterday, we were wading through that $600 million verdict against C.H. Robinson and that diesel spike that hit us like a haymaker.
Look, it was a bloodbath. But today we're actually looking at some infrastructure that doesn't involve a courtroom. And maybe, just maybe, a little bit of relief on the fuel side.
If you call a 6% drop a relief, Dan, actually the volatility is what worries me. But we have to start with the big one. The border finally moved yesterday.
It really did. I mean, the Gordie Howe International Bridge is finally open, right? After 7 years of construction and about 25 years of us just talking about it.
I mean, the thing is, the Ambassador Bridge has had a private monopoly on that Detroit-Windsor crossing for almost 100 years. It's about time we had a little competition in the circulatory system, you know?
And On Freight Logistics took the honors. A family-run fleet from Ontario was the first commercial carrier across at noon yesterday. Jim Pereira was the man behind the wheel for that first load of auto parts.
That's the play right there. Steve Ondako has been pushing for this bridge since I was cold calling for freight in a cubicle. It's huge for the automotive supply chain.
My thing is the tech on this span, though. It's a cable-stayed bridge, 853 meters for the main span, longest in North America, and it's built for 6 lanes of high-volume logistics.
It's sort of a miracle for my Atlanta-based accounts that move north. We're talking about bypassing that old bottleneck. Steve actually sent his son from the Canadian side and his daughter from the U.S. side to meet in the middle.
Now that is some heavy-duty symbolism right there. Meet at the border, trade a handshake, and keep the gears turning. I love it.
Well, okay. But from a risk perspective, this finally gives us a modern, redundant route for those just-in-time parts. If the Ambassador has a glitch, we aren't paralyzed anymore.
Speaking of not being paralyzed, look, the rails are trying to do the same thing. That peace treaty between Canadian National, Union Pacific, and Norfolk Southern is the biggest chess move I've seen in a decade. Now it's time for Spot Rate Tape, our Tuesday segment where we break down the national averages and look at the actual cost of moving metal across the map.
Here's the deal, Dan. People are still reeling from that diesel jump yesterday. You telling me rates are actually softening while fuel is biting our heads off?
It's the midsummer pivot, Buck. Look, let's look at the tape for today, July 28th. National averages are cooling off after the holiday, but the floor is holding up a lot higher than 2025.
Is that right? I mean, I'm seeing some reefer volatility with my Pacific Northwest accounts, but it feels like things are sort of, stabilizing?
Exactly. Here's the play. Dry van is settling around $2.82. That's down about 2% week over week. Reefer is at $3.29, also off a bit as the produce peak crests.
Actually, I suppose that's to be expected. But what about the open deck stuff? Flatbed has been on a tear for months.
It finally snapped a 17-week winning streak, dipped about 5 cents to $3.72. But here's the call-out lane you need to watch. Ontario to Stockton.
The West Coast? I mean, what's the deal there? I thought California was a regulatory desert these days.
It's the ports, Buck. Port volumes are staying aggressive. While the rest of the country's sliding, Ontario to Stockton jumped almost 5% this week. If you're running the West Coast, your leverage is actually growing.
It's sort of that pull-forward energy again, isn't it? Shippers trying to beat the next wave of trade headaches, right?
Precisely. And watch the Southeast. Atlanta to Philly is tight. $215 to $265 for van. If you're heading into Philly, remember, there's no return freight. You're paying for the deadhead out.
Actually, that's exactly why those shippers are scrambling. They know the August stabilization is coming, and they're trying to lock in capacity before the Q4 crunch hits the fan.
That's the play. Spot rate tape, that's a wrap.
If I may, that mention of the trade headaches is a perfect segue. We're officially entering what I call the permanent tariff economy. The era of exemptions? It's dead.
Well, the thing is, the lawsuit filed on Friday, the one in the Court of International Trade, these small businesses are saying these new Section 301 tariffs are, and I quote, arbitrary and capricious.
They can say that all they want, Buck. But as of late July, 99.4% of all U.S. imports are now subject to these baseline duties. And the de minimis loophole? Total elimination.
Shein and Temu must be feeling that, right? Shein reported a loss because they can't ship those $800 duty-free packages anymore.
It's a seismic shift. Shippers aren't optimizing for cost anymore. They're optimizing for resilience. If you can't prove your supply chain is clean of forced labor or structural excess, you're paying 10 to 12% out of the gate.
Exactly. And that puts a huge burden on us for traceability. If you're a carrier and you can't tell me where that cargo originated, truly originated, you're a liability, not an asset.
Hey, before we move on to the autonomous stuff, a quick note from our sponsor. Strategic logistics requires world-class engineering. This show is powered by the stack developed by Eric Christensen at Neural Network Media.
Support the architect behind the code. Visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Neural Network Media for a free trial and access to our daily briefing PDF. Trust me, you want that PDF in the cab.
Or on your ergonomic standing desk, right, Buck?
Hey, I stand up once a week, Elena.
Okay, let's look at the land grab happening in M&A. DHL e-commerce just swallowed Venepack. That's a total takeover of the Baltic parcel network. Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, they're all in.
Look, this isn't just a delivery play. It's an infrastructure play. Venepack has 800 parcel lockers. DHL is moving away from contractors. They want to own the lockers because whoever owns the lockers owns the last mile.
It's the same thing Amerit Fleet Solutions is doing. They just acquired Kirk National Lease and TTPS. They're buying technical specialization. They know fleets are aging and tech is getting too complex for the mom and pop shop.
Well, speaking of tech getting too complex, Aurora Innovation just signed Value Truck. My thing is, they're putting these second-generation driverless trucks on the Dallas-Laredo corridor.
Dallas-Laredo is the most strategic lane in North America, Buck. It handles 40% of our Mexico freight. Nearshoring is blowing the doors off that corridor. We need the capacity.
I know. Capacity gaps. But these are international LTs built for 1,000,000-mile lifespan. 1,000,000 miles! No driver to smell a failing wheel bearing or hear a dry U-joint.
Actually, Buck, the sensor suite on those second-gen trucks is designed to catch mechanical failures before a human ear ever could. That's the proactive operational excellence we're seeing this week.
Right? And Mack and Volvo are doing the same thing with their DEF software. They're finally listening to the drivers. They just upped the limp mode speed from 5 miles per hour to 25.
Hallelujah! Being stuck on the shoulder of I-80 at 5 miles an hour because a sensor got a whiff of bad exhaust? That's a death trap. 25 is at least enough to get you to a safe pull-off.
Precisely. And they expanded the repair window from 4 hours to 160 hours. It's about uptime, Buck. The industry is realizing that regulatory inducements shouldn't be a death sentence for a delivery schedule.
Look, It's all about keeping the wheels moving. Even the energy market is playing ball today. Brent crude fell $6 yesterday, down to $90.
Wait, I thought oil was going to 100 because of the Middle East conflict. I mean, what changed?
Diplomacy space, Jules. Mike Waltz, the UN ambassador, said they're pausing hostilities with Iran to give diplomacy some space. The market breathed a sigh of relief and WTI slipped to $84.
Which is why DHL Express is already lowering their fuel surcharges for August. They're actually being proactive about the cost reduction. That's a rarity in this business.
Well, let's see if that actually hits the small guy's pockets. My thing is, when diesel goes up, it's immediate. When it drops, it takes a month to find its way to the pump.
Well, you see, that's not the only thing small guys have to worry about. The feds just dismantled a $10 million cargo theft ring. It wasn't just a smash and grab either.
Was that the electronics ring in New Jersey? I read about that. They were using automated scripts to scrape tracking data from FedEx and bribing cellular company employees.
Exactly. This is strategic theft. They used insider info to know exactly where the iPhones and iPads were going, then intercepted them before the customer even knew the truck was in town. Information is the weapon now.
It's surgical. And look, speaking of surgical placement, American Eagle just dropped $41 million on a new hub in Salisbury, North Carolina, nearly 500,000 square feet.
Salisbury is sort of becoming the logistics capital of the Southeast, isn't it? One-day drive to 150 million consumers. That's why Jay Schottenstein is doubling down on distributed inventory.
I mean, the thing is, that brings us to the big one. TFI International's earnings call yesterday. Alain Bedard basically gave the market a reality check. So here's the deal. TFI crushed their earnings. Revenue up 12%. Adjusted EPS up 38%. But the stock actually dipped.
Look, the market is second-guessing the beat. It's a tale of two segments. Their specialized truckload division is hitting grand slams, operating income up 50%. But the LTL side, that's where the friction is.
Actually, the operating ratio for their truckload segment was 86%. That's incredible. But Bedard was blunt about the LTL flagship. He said they have too much volume and not enough price.
I mean, that's sort of a heavy admission, right? They're basically admitting they're hauling low-quality freight just to fill the trucks.
Well, I mean, the thing is, Alain isn't the type to sugarcoat it. He basically said they're going to prune that volume. They'd rather have empty trailers than trailers that don't pay the bills.
That's the play. It's the regulatory purge. He thinks the FMCSA and the courts are killing off the weak players, and TFI is just waiting to pick up the premium leftovers.
Actually, it's a risky strategy. If you shed that volume and the market doesn't tighten as fast as you think, you're just left with a massive overhead and no revenue to cover it.
But there's specialized niches, aerospace, wind energy, data centers. Those are the home runs. TFI isn't just a trucking company anymore. They're sort of an industrial support network.
Look, the LTL pricing woes are industry-wide. TFI is just the first one to say it out loud. They surpassed expectations, but the market is looking at that low-quality volume and getting nervous.
My thing is, I like Bedard's style. He increased the dividend by 4%. He's putting his money where his mouth is, while everyone else is still complaining about the freight recession.
I suppose. But risk-wise, watching your flagship segment struggle while you're banking on specialized niches is a tightrope walk. One dip in the aerospace sector, and that OR looks very different.
Well, okay, but with $2.3 billion in revenue, they've got some cushion. It's a fascinating snapshot of where we are. The cheap freight is dying, and the technical freight is the only thing keeping the lights on.
That's the deal. TFI is the canary in the coal mine for the second half of 26.
It's a high-stakes chess game, and Bedard just moved his queen. We'll see if the market agrees by Q3.
That's all for today's High Road Logistics and Leadership. We've got new bridges, new tariffs, and a rail peace treaty that might just change the map forever. Keep your eyes on the road and your sensors clean.
See you then.
Bye.
See ya.
And remember, if you can't smell the diesel, you're probably in a simulator. Get back to work.